So throughout 2016, 17, 18, I was writing about the racial wealth gap and showing it to Black America. People were watching. Well, what you mean? You don't remember that Diddy was going to have me on a revolt, and then they took me off because I'd done the videos saying that I don't believe in no decadent veil? I remember. Well, nonetheless, I did a report, and I got the report right here because I'm going to share a section with you. And what it literally says is that the exact thing that these people are saying right here makes no goddamn sense. It makes no sense. Yeah. So financial literacy will not close a $120 trillion wealth gap. It will not close it at all. No. So they're selling you courses on something that an economist, not just me, my name is right here, but there's economists here, not people that were PE teachers and basketball players that literally have already done studies showing that what they're talking about does nothing to close the racial wealth gap. Let me explain it. I told you that I was going to go through this, but the report is free on the internet. We're not charging $5. We're not charging $1,500. It is free on the internet, so you can go find it on your own. But I'm gonna read two sections to you, JT, and I want you then to just bounce off these two sections. Mm-hmm. The report was based on 10 myths to close the racial wealth gap. I did an article on Fortune magazine about this report in 2018. This is a year before their whole thing launches. So there's levels, and like I said, I believe that this is a reaction. This whole thing is a reaction to this project to let Black folks know that there's real problems with the difference in wealth between Blacks and whites. I interviewed the man that came up with the term racial wealth gap in 2017. Thomas Shapiro and Melvin Oliver, in the book Black Wealth and White Wealth, introduced the term racial wealth gap. Right. I interview him and we go in a debate back in 2017. But they coming on CNN telling you that all you got to do is learn some stuff and you can close it. I want you to know one thing before I start reading. I told this to JT earlier. That is Black conservatism wrapped in Black empowerment. It is an idea that we are our own problem and it ain't white oppression. They can frame it how they want to. Once you start talking about financial literacy, you saying that Black folks don't make good decisions. You just don't know it. Maybe because where you went to school. So Hamilton and Darity have argued that all too often the framing of the racial wealth gap focuses on poor financial choices and decisions on the part of Blacks. And again, this is myth 5. Greater financial literacy will close the racial wealth gap. It will not. The key point is whites generally have more resources to invest at the outset. Not only do they invest more in home ownership, they invest more in financial assets too. Basically, whites have more of every asset simply because they have more resources. Attributing the racial wealth gap to a more diverse asset portfolio for whites is ambiguous at best, given that it is wealth in the first place that is associated with having a more diverse asset portfolio. Meager economic circumstances, not poor decision-making or deficient knowledge, constrain choices or leave asset-poor borrowers with little to no other option but to use predatory and abusive alternative financial services. Hamilton, Darity, 2017. I'm almost finished. As we have noted above, wealth begets wealth. Higher levels of wealth enable greater access to more favorable terms for credit. Wealth provides individuals and families with financial agency and choice. It provides economic security to take risk and shield against the risk of economic loss. There is also a presumption that as a result of financial irresponsibility, Blacks carry much more greater debt than whites. But it's not valid. Hamilton and Darity, 2017. Tippett and co-authors in 2014 found that overall, a slightly larger share of whites had unsecured debt than Black families. As stated above, it is ultimately racial differences in initial endowments, meaning those transfers that we talked about earlier, and access to financial resources that sustain and fuel the racial wealth gap. Greater financial literacy can be valuable if an individual or household has finances to manage. Financial literacy without finance is meaningless. There is no magical way to transform no wealth into great wealth simply by learning more about how to manage wealth. Go ahead.
All right, so this is why I appreciate the work that you do and the work that Yvette does, right? We come at this at different angles. I come from a ground level approach. I'm an actual financial advisor that works one-on-one. So when it comes to financial literacy and financial planning, that's what I actually do for my profession. That helps a person on an individual level of how they can better manage the resources that they currently have, right? That's a ground level. The work of closing a wealth gap or creating Black wealth is not a financial literacy problem. It's a policy problem. And that's why the work that ADOS is doing is important, because you have to fix the policy issue, because then financial literacy can actually help when you actually give them resources to manage.